Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Dr. Laura Dowling. She's a consultant, 20 years experience and 16 years as a professor. I have Beth Hill Poulin. She's changing lives with tactile patterns. And John Mollison interviews old guys, draws their airplanes, and is a PR executive and filmmaker. Super interesting panel today. And the question I want to ask you, as a leader, how do you allow an expert team to discuss or make a decision without influencing it too much with your opinion? Dr. Laura, kick us off.
That's an interesting question. Simple but not easy answer. I ensure that they have a good decision-making process to follow, which usually is about 4 steps. Clearly identify the issue, the stakeholders, and what's at stake. Evaluate the alternatives, assess the risk, any risks, and then make a decision. Then I get out of the way. I'm not looking for my thinking. I'm looking for other thinking. So I try to really get out of the way and trust them to come back with a good decision. And most of the time it's spot on. Every once in a while they go back to the drawing room, but good decisions are made regularly.
I think that's key in that you're asking for expert decision-making because you're not the expert. If I was the expert, then I wouldn't need anybody else's. I'm reaching out to an expert group to make a decision because that's their ballpark. So I try to back off and let them do that and then see where it takes us. But if I'm asking for an expert opinion, then I definitely want to hear that first.
Well, I had a similar question that I posed a World War II fighter pilot. Getting back to I interview old guys and I draw their airplanes, specifically their old combat veterans. But what his framework that he gave me was that my job was to communicate a mission. And if I did a good job in communicating a mission, I needed to trust the outcomes of the people tasked with that mission. Now, of course, I had to step in periodically and maybe get in a situation report or an evaluation of some sort of progress. But ultimately, I had to trust whether I communicated well to begin with. And if I did, then I had to trust the outcomes of the team. Of course, there's instincts involved, and there's sometimes when the team comes up with the wrong plan or something like that. But those are rarely that apparent that somebody has to stop. So going into a situation of delegating or trusting other people to come up with an idea, I really consider it my responsibility to communicate what that mission is very clear up front and then trust the results.
I think it's a mistake when a leader walks in the room and says, I think XYZ. What do you think? Because you're not going to get a good result then. The thing I'd like to tell leaders is that if you know where you want to get and you know how you want to get there, don't ask people's opinions, tell them. If you know where you want to get, but you're not sure how to get there, ask opinions and allow them to give you feedback. If you're not sure where you want to get, go back to the drawing board. Don't talk to anybody yet. You're not ready.
That's exactly right, Doc Robyn. Just let them go at it and trust that they know what to do and will do it. And it is a key process or a key relationship that helps create buy-in and achievement occurs and wildly amazing things happen when you trust.
Dr. Robyn, do you think this question is in relationship to the leader's ego at all? I mean, do you see ego playing into how people trust teams or trust outcomes?
And I think some of it too has to do with how much they surround themselves with yes people. Because if you surround yourself with people who are going to tell you yes, you have to let them know what you want them to say yes about. And so then people come in and they say all their things and then they'll say, what's your opinion? And everybody goes, oh, I agree with that. And then, oh, yay, we're all in agreement. Let's go. And that is a mistake. But leaders who don't want to hear other people's opinions will tell them what their opinions are.
That's a great point. And that's why I look for teammates and colleagues that think differently than I do. I understand my own thinking. And sometimes it gets me in trouble because I failed to see a perspective that somebody else with different eyes sees. So it's important to get a holistic perspective.
I think there's another point here too, is there does come a time where a leader has to say, okay, we need to stop talking and make a decision. And whether it's that leader's responsibility to make a decision based on the information that's been gathered, or whether it's the team's responsibility to make a decision does have to be made. Now, the risk with teams making decisions is that they often will come to the lowest common denominator or some kind of mediocre midpoint rather than choosing the best ideal situation. So that's when a leader should step in.
But if you have an agreed upon decision-making process, you can avoid that, Dr. Robyn.
Hopefully.
We have to maintain that communication that this is the standard we're looking for. We're not looking for the lowest common denominator. I want the best that you can give me. And if we don't think it's possible right now, how can we get to how it's possible?
Right.
What steps can we take, or what steps do we need to take so that it is possible?
So what ideas do we have for the self-aware leader who wants to make sure their ego stays out of the way and can allow their teams to create these really high success rate decisions?
Well, I think first of all, the leader needs to know the mission and the outcome. There is always a desired outcome, and the leader needs to be able to articulate that clearly.
Where is the space for a leader to brainstorm when they don't know really for sure where they're going? Where does that happen?
Well, I think really ultimately we're looking about multiplying time. And if a leader is part of the brainstorming process, then that's a different aspect of why you delegated a team to make a decision in the first place.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard for leaders to brainstorm because they are the leader and they are the authority. People will default to them.
Right. So for me, again, it's about stating the mission. And then the reason I've delegated a task to a team, and I work on this when making films, is the reason I've delegated that task or project or whatever aspect is because I need to do something else. So I'm trusting that group and I say, solve this problem, whatever it might be. And I come back and I've already decided in my head, I've already made the exchange of control, the exchange of getting my ego out of the way in exchange for efficiency and moving forward. I believe very strongly in the adage, no plan survives the first 30 seconds of combat anyway.
Yeah.
So life has already taught me that there rarely is a perfect plan. And if I need to trust intelligence of everybody involved, that when we do come up with another situation, well, we had brains to solve the first problem. We'll have brains to solve the second problem. So I'm not always worried about finding the perfect answer.
I love the point you made. If you're micromanaging, you don't have enough to do. Love that.
Right.
I think you surround yourself with talented, passionate people who are intellectually diverse and trust them and create a team environment, a culture of we.
A community where you are okay to disagree and willing to be convinced, because it may be something, a perspective that you've not even recognized, and it may take a minute to wrap your head around it. So if that level of communication is there amongst the team, you trust the team, you've built the community, then you should be able to put the ego aside and say, this is a we, this is not a me. This is a we, and we together can figure out a way to make this happen.
I agree with you, Beth. I use a lot of language. Here's our problem. Here's something we have to solve. How can we do this? And just let them go at it.
I think the first thing that leaders have to do is recognize that with authority in the room becomes a certain amount of your words have weight, and what you say people are going to gravitate to rather than being more provocative. I know when I worked in corporate, if I was provocative, leaders got mad at me, and it taught people not to be provocative. And you lose that extra, how do we do this? How does this work? What can we change? How can we do it better? If you don't allow people to be provocative in those kind of meetings.
Well, I just think that those kind of provocative conversations need to happen without the leader in the room. And then the team brings that back to you, and they've had all of this brainstorming, and that's the whole reason that you're delegating it in the first place.
And that brings up a whole separate conversation about how do you
Yes.
create democracy in a team where they can actually all have a conversation without one person running away with it, and et cetera, et cetera. But we don't have time to have that conversation because that is our 10 minutes. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I
I
look
will
forward
tune
to
into that
speaking
one.
to each of you again very soon.
Thank
Okay.
you.